This is ODAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello, lovies. Welcome to another episode of the ODAT Chat podcast. In case you're new here, my name is Arlena and I'll be your host. This is a podcast where my guests share their stories of alcoholism and addiction and their journey to recovery. For more information on today's episode and to access past episodes, please visit odatchat.com. So today my conversation is with Charlie. He's the co-host of the Way Out podcast. You previously heard Jason's story, and now it's Charlie's turn on the hot seat. By the end of the conversation, I felt inspired and so happy to have made a new friend. But before I jump into the episode, I would just want to share a quick resource with you. It's called soberlifeschool.com. This is an online school with short courses on recovery-related issues. So, for instance, how to heal relationships with relationship rescue. This is a process for people who are in relationship and they're struggling to reconnect, or who have had a lot of resentment and who desperately want to get back to that place of love and connection with their partner. So this course is where we use the steps to focus on healing in the relationship in 4 phases. So there's an introductory phase where we review the issues. Phase 2 is permission to vent. So this is where we get into identifying causes. And step 3 is the relationship inventory. And this is where we get really specific about the cause of each resentment, how it affects you, and what your part is. And the last phase is the plan. So this is where we discuss your progress and review your plan for moving forward. So for more information, you can visit soberlifeschool.com and look for Relationship Rescue. So as I mentioned, today I'm talking with Charlie, the other half of the dynamic duo, if I could only speak, oh my God. He is, the other half of the dynamic duo is what I was trying to say from the Way Out podcast. Charlie is a student of the Big Book. He is a dedicated servant to carrying the message, and he's a really sweet guy. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. So with that, please enjoy this episode with Charlie. Here we go. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chat podcast.
Arlena, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Whoop, whoop. Happy to have you. I interviewed your co-host. What do you call him? Your co-host?
I do. I call him my co-host, Jason.
Your co-host, Jason. Yeah, I had a lovely conversation with him that got published. It's doing real well. So, of course, I had to have the other half of the dynamic duo. So thank you.
You know what? Jason is a tough act to follow, so I'll do my best.
I'll make you look good. Don't you worry. Right. Yeah. So I used to start off in a couple of different ways. I used to start off by asking people what they did for a living, and then I used to ask them to describe themselves, what they look like, because this is a podcast. I'll post your picture on the. Can I post your picture? I didn't even ask you.
You sure can. Absolutely. Okay, good.
Yeah, not super anonymous. I'm not either.
No. I'm very open with my recovery.
Me too. And I wonder if you went through the sort of same struggle I did with the whether to do it or not, just to begin with, because, there's the tradition about maintaining anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. And how did you overcome that part?
For me, I felt as though if I were ensuring that it was with the right motive. So it was a motive check for me.
A motive check. That's really good.
Yeah. If I wanted my name out there and attached because I wanted to become famous in an anonymous program.
I think I heard you say that before. That's hilarious.
And I'm probably not doing it for the right reason.
Right. And listen, what a thing to be famous for, being an alcoholic. I mean,
That's
come
right.
on.
That's right. I want to be like the recovery ninja. Yeah. You know, just
The recovery ninja.
Yeah. So, but if it's because I want to be helpful, and if it's because I want to be the best example of recovery I can be today, and if you see that, and then maybe approach me because for some reason my higher power chose to speak to you, right, through me, and I can share my experience, strength, and hope, and maybe that helps you. That's why I do it.
God, isn't that such a win? I mean, every once in a while I'll get an email from someone or whatever. And if I don't know why that is such a big deal to me, but there is no other high than like feeling like the pain that I went through wasn't for nothing.
Absolutely.
You know? And that I made somebody else's life a little bit better. I connected on the heart level somehow.
Yes.
No better feeling.
It's exactly what I'm trying to do in so many aspects of my recovery.
Yeah, no, I totally, and listen, I have a soft spot in my heart for anyone who's willing to, this is not easy and it takes a lot of work and dedication. So
isn't it funny, doing a podcast, there's a lot to it, isn't there?
There's a lot. Oh my gosh, there's so much. Actually, do you know Omar Pinto from the Share?
Oh yeah.
Podcast?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a good buddy of mine. Yeah.
Oh, is he? Yeah, we're talking about maybe doing a class on how to podcast together.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to it. I tell you what, in terms of the preparation that goes into it, the production, all of it, booking guests, and there's a lot.
Yeah, the marketing and advertising and all that stuff. It's a lot, but worth every second.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a passion of mine, and I don't foresee myself stopping anytime soon.
I don't know, me either. How many? But you guys have a almost 270.
No, we have 100. We have 140.
140. Yep. Sorry.
100. It feels like 270. So you're onto something. Yeah. So you're onto something there.
Yeah. If you cut them in half, then you would have 280. No, that's a lot. Yeah. So I'm actually at the 70 something, low 70 mark. I should probably know this. Anyway.
That is an accomplishment.
Right.
That is an absolute accomplishment.
Yeah.
To be at that number. You should feel really good about that.
Too. I've been super inconsistent. Don't you feel like it's kind of hard to be I don't know. Do you find it challenging to the consistency part?
No. Well, yes and no. Yes, in that to be able to produce a consistent product that I feel good about, that's going to be valuable to our audience. Yes, absolutely, 100%. But in terms of when we switched formats and I added Jason as my co-host to the podcast, and we went topic-based versus solely interview-based, the consistency has been a little bit easier to achieve and maintain.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good idea. Very good. Okay. But so before we geek out too much on podcasting in general, why don't we start with a little, I am always very curious about people's family of origin. And I always feel like, I always start off with the dad. I don't know why, but tell me a little bit about your parents and maybe what they did for a living.
Yeah, so my mom, my biological mom, and we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about my story. But my biological mom was a librarian. She actually was the librarian that ran the bookmobile for the county that I grew up in, Dakota County in Minnesota. And she loved it. She traveled from city to city in this library on wheels with her driver Norm, and she would be the one telling people which book they need to read next, and she'd find out what you liked and what you didn't, and she'd come back with a stack of books for you and tell you the whole deal. I didn't like reading very much, which kind of sucks when your mom's a librarian.
Your mom's a librarian.
Yeah. And so, but she just loved it. She loved everything about it. She was an English major, and was before she died, was going to be the head librarian for all of that county. So that was her passion. And my dad has probably had a million jobs, no doubt. And from owning a movie theater to working on copy machines to owning his own business to flipping burgers at a greasy spoon. The man has probably done just about everything. And he once wrote a story about all of the jobs he had. And it was one of the coolest memories and possessions that I have from my father is this sort of compilation of all of the jobs he's ever had since he was 13 years old. So
wow, that's amazing. So he was kind of an entrepreneur and kind of a Renaissance guy, huh?
He reinvented himself over and over and over. So it was kind of an inspiration.
Cool. Yeah. Did either one of your were either one of them drinkers?
So my dad was, I think you'd call him a problem drinker, not an alcoholic, sort of was able to get that in check, right? He had one DWI when he was in his early 40s, but no other consequences from alcohol after that. I grew up with my dad not being a big drinker, and not really ever having it in the house, and not ever really feeling like it was a big alcohol just wasn't a part of our lives. But my extended family is riddled with alcoholism.
Like his sibling. Both sides.
So the aunts and uncles and on my mom's side, and aunts and uncles on my dad's side. So literally everybody else in their family besides them were alcoholics.
Wow. I wonder why they escaped.
Yeah, they did. They escaped somehow. Although, looking back, I think my mom had some issues with food and some other things probably. But, certainly my dad was a lifelong smoker. Wow. Until age 40, smoked 3 packs a day.
How is that possible? That's 60 cigarettes.
Yes. And, he did that because he was going on a health kick. He used to smoke a pack plus of Pall Mall. Unfiltered, right? And he decided to get on a health kick and switch to the filtered cigarettes.
So you just smoked 3 times as many.
3 times as many. Yeah, I mean, you literally at 60 cigarettes a day, you just are lighting one with the other, right? That's how that's going? Right?
Oh God, that's nasty. So, but that's that's addict behavior.
Totally, 100%. And he quit cold turkey after from 3 packs down to 0. And I don't know how he didn't murder somebody.
How do you know that he didn't?
Well, I don't. Nor have I asked him. Although, you know what? I think I might.
Some things are better left unsaid. Wow, cold turkey. That's amazing. Did he have like a health scare or something?
No, I think he wanted to. It was a combination of things. So my mom had been working on him over that period of time, and she's sort of like, all right, you can't smoke in the bathroom anymore. Okay, you can't smoke in the bedroom anymore. Okay, you can't smoke in the kitchen anymore. Okay, you can't smoke in the living room, right? Yeah, and then you can't smoke. So he sort of got the hint, right? Yeah. Right. It is very cold. Yet there are some committed smokers here, and I used to be one of them. And I'm a former smoker, but I'll tell you what, I think he just got the hint that my mom wanted him to quit.
Oh my goodness. And did they stay married till I think you mentioned she passed away. Did they stay married until she passed away?
It did. Yeah. My mom died of breast cancer when I was 11 years old. 11 years old. Yep.
Oh man, that is so young.
I was 5 when she was diagnosed. Maybe 6 when she was diagnosed. She fought about a 5-year battle and died when I was 11 years old. Yep.
Oh, brutal. That was kind of all of your conscious childhood, right?
Yes.
I mean, really, most people don't have a lot of memories prior to 5.
No.
So she was always sick as long as you knew her. Yeah,
she got real sick in the end. In the beginning, it wasn't, it wasn't as marked, right? And, we didn't, my dad is the constant optimist and, always really believed until the very, 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 very end that there was a chance. Yep. That there was a chance. That's right.
Oh, poor
and
dad.
So the effect on that for us was we also thought that, right? We also believed that. And
so you didn't really take it seriously, probably.
We saw, it was interesting, Arlita, what I saw with my own eyes didn't reconcile with what my dad was telling me.
Oh, okay. Even at 11, you recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe 10.
Yeah, 10 years old. Yeah. And I wanted to believe my dad, you know.
How was your mom's? What was your mom's disposition? Was she like, prepare yourself, or?
It's interesting. She got, so she didn't address us too much with that. But, a book got written called, 12 Women's Stories of Breast Cancer, right? And this came out after my mom died, and I didn't read it for many, many years because I just couldn't bring myself to read it.
Too painful, yeah.
And I read it, and one of the things that came out in the story is that my mom was very, very angry with my dad for not reckoning with the reality that she was dying.
Oh.
And my dad refused to reckon with that reality. And she wanted him to reckon with it and prepare for it.
Right.
And he wasn't willing to do it, you know.
He couldn't, probably.
He couldn't. And I resented him for a long time, I think, afterwards because of that, because it was such a shock to us when she did die.
Yeah.
And everything fell apart. She was our social engineer. Yeah. She was our chef. She was our chief home organizer, cleaner,
the nurse,
everything. And that all fell apart, and none of us were really expecting it because my dad kept telling us that she's going to get better. 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 And she didn't get better, right? But I know today that that's because he really, really believed that was a possibility, right? He really, with every fiber of his being, he believed that was possible.
You know, I've seen that before in people where to acknowledge reality is almost like giving up on the person. That's and they love them so much they just can't do it.
That's right.
It feels like a betrayal, or like it's almost like their denial is somehow keeping them alive or something.
Indeed. And I think it felt like to him that if he reckoned with that reality, that he was giving up.
Yeah.
On her.
Yeah. It's not conscious, I don't think, but there's also that belief that they're, once they let go, then it's their fault, or there's some sort, they're responsible in some way. Or
that's right. Yeah, like they're complicit in some way.
Yeah, that's the perfect word, complicit. So, your poor dad. And you mentioned they're us. You have siblings?
I do. I have an older brother who's 4 years older than me, and then a younger brother that's 18 months younger than me.
You are the middle child.
I am, indeed.
Guess who else is?
Middle children in podcasts, and maybe there's something to that.
We're like twins separated at birth, maybe.
Yes.
But then we wouldn't be middle children. Or maybe we would. I don't know. Okay, so a house full of boys.
Yes. It was all boys. It was my dad and 3 brothers. Yes, absolutely. And we grew up that way until my dad remarried.
Okay.
A number of, not that, I was 15 when he remarried. To my stepmom. Then I got a stepmom, and I got a live-in stepsister, which was a bit of a shock to the system.
2 women in the house all of a sudden.
Yes.
How old was your stepsister?
So my stepsister is about 6 years older than me.
Older. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she was in college, and the only thing I knew is that I had I had the big room upstairs, and I lost that to this new stepsister and her cat. And so yes, and I was already collecting resentments. I was an avid resentment collector ever since my mom died.
Sure,
I resented God. I resented my dad. I resented my brothers. I mean, I just collected them like they were gonna somehow go out of style. So she became another resentment.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been so hard. And I don't know, did your dad ever provide counseling for you and your brothers or anything?
Yeah, he was actually really supportive of that. But, sort of it's one of those things where if you're not ready to receive it, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. At that young age, I wonder if some seeds were planted though.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. This idea that he was supportive and open to it. And actually, Sherry was my stepmom. Sherry was very supportive of that, so she was a tremendous gift in our lives, even though it didn't feel like it at times because,
pissed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
rightly so.
So much anger after my mom died at God, at the world in general, the universe for dealing me this hand, right? My mom I was mad at.
She loved you.
That's right, yeah, just all these I was a walking fit of rage because of losing my mother when I did. And, I remember making a conscious decision when my mom died. We're at the wake and somebody said, I guess God saw fit to take your mom early.
That's some bullshit. People say the stupidest things.
I know. And I thought,
fuck you.
Fuck God. I want no part of a God
who's going to take my mom early.
That's right. And so I made this conscious decision to remove God out of my life completely.
Yeah.
Because I wanted no part of it. And I made a conscious decision to remove other people out of my life in any meaningful way, because they're going to die too. Right. So I'm going to do this thing on my own.
And, we make decisions. So your little 11-year-old boy self who is, doesn't have all the information like you do now, right? You don't have the perspective like you do now. It's like, we make decisions about the life and the world. And, as an adult, we don't realize that, we've allowed a child to decide so much for us. And it doesn't I would never let my 11-year-old son make decisions for me, but that's exactly what I did is I allowed my little girl to make decisions that I operate from as an adult.
Yeah. And it's amazing the vacuum that provided. It provided a vacuum, which I attempted. I always believed that I had big addict and alcoholic switches, when I was born, right? Mm-hmm. And they were going to get tripped. They just were. Yeah. One way or the other, right? Those addict and alcoholic switches were going to get tripped. Right? Yeah. My mom dying at 11 years old provided that sort of kerosene on the proverbial fire, right? And really kick-started and ignited my addiction and alcoholism in a pretty spectacular way. Yeah. Because I had that pain and that loss and all of that, those awful anger emotions that I then needed to numb because I didn't know how to deal with them. They were too overwhelming. They were too powerful. Yeah. And so at 15 years old, I drank for the very first time. And I remember feeling whole and complete. First time in my entire life. I had arrived. I am at one with the world and all of its people.
Yeah.
And it was just this magical feeling, this magical experience. And then I remember getting so hammered that the people at the party didn't want to deal with me anymore, because I always told people that, somebody gave me a glass of water and it was Everclear and I didn't know. That's a lie. I knew it was Everclear. I drank it anyway after already having way too much. And when
this was your first time drinking?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm surprised you didn't have, maybe you did have alcohol poisoning.
I did indeed. They put me in the dog kennel outside because they couldn't handle me anymore, which, I don't blame anybody for. I know I was completely out of control.
Yeah.
And I stopped breathing. My lips were blue when they checked on me a couple hours later. And I was dying of alcohol poisoning. And they did manage to revive me. I don't know why or how. We're here for a purpose. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And so I was revived. They decided, instead of calling the police, to feed me a bottle of syrup of Ipecac.
Oh, yeah.
And I proceeded to vomit in this guy's garage for 12 hours.
They never called professional help?
Never. No.
And these are other 15-year-olds.
Yeah, they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get busted. Are you kidding? Right?
Oh, my God.
And I worked at McDonald's at 15 years old at the time, and the store manager was sort of like the mother hen for us kids, and she heard about this, right? She heard about this epic party and, all this stuff. So she decided that she was going to stick me on grill cleanup detail all day.
What, as punishment?
As punishment.
Oh,
yes.
man.
So I got
consequences right out of the gate.
Yes, I got to deal with cleaning grease off of grills for 8 hours.
Gross.
The following
hungover.
Saturday. Yep, hungover is all get out. Although none of that stopped me. All I remember is feeling amazing, and I wanted to do it as much as I possibly could, because clearly I had found something that makes me feel whole.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I would imagine it carried on that way for some time.
Yeah, it did.
Did you ever go to jail or get DUIs or any of that?
Yeah, I did. I went to treatment when I was 16, right after that, right?
Because God. Yeah. A year later, you're in treatment?
I was, because I became a daily pot smoker and a drinker as often as I could get it, right? At 16 years old, it's not always easy to get alcohol, but when we got it, we drank it, and I drank as much as I possibly could because I loved how it made me feel.
Pain.
Yeah, my stepmom at the time, she just moved in. My dad found a joint, I think, or something in my room of paraphernalia related, and sent alarm bells. And so they sent me to treatment. And I went. I convinced them that outpatient, the admissions counselor at outpatient was right for me, because I only did it every once in a while, and. I set out to become the treatment ninja.
What does that mean?
Well, that means I know what you want to hear, Arlena. I know the lingo. I can wax poetically about recovery. Okay?
Yeah.
And become the treatment ninja. Yeah. Get out of here and go about the business of doing what I was doing before, because I had literally just found this like a year ago. I'm not quitting. It's not happening. Sorry.
Oh, man. Just a year in.
Yeah, I was not. And I apologize for that phone. But I was not going to quit. I just wasn't. But I knew what you needed to hear.
Right.
Okay. And so I was going to do my best to give you what you wanted to hear. And they're passing the coin around on the 28th day. And the head treatment counselor, Eileen, a tough old Irish broad, okay? Everybody's saying, Charlie, if I just had half of your wisdom, half of your recovery, I'd be grateful. You're going to stay sober forever, right?
They're telling you this at 16 years old?
Absolutely. And I think I've got everybody snowed, okay?
Wow.
And the head treatment counselor literally interrupts the circle, takes the coin, looks at me in the eyes and says, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to this group. You will drink again. You will use again. and it's probably going to kill you.
Oh my God.
And she walked out.
Wow. Mic drop.
Yeah. And everybody's like, what a bitch, And I'm like, I know, and she was right. And she became the voice of reason for me. Every time the truth of my disease would present itself to me, and there was two alternating truths that would present themselves to me. I have alcoholism, like it says in that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have that alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of my disease is twofold. Number one, over any substantial period of time, I will not be able to manage my drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line. Okay. And that manifests itself, that truth manifests itself in DWIs, which I have 3, but should have many, many, many more.
Mm-hmm.
It manifests itself in lost relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It manifests itself in the things I couldn't achieve, that I couldn't attain, that I never got. And then the other truth of my disease is when I try to be sober. Right? So something happens, I get a DWI or I lose a relationship, right? And I tell myself, self, you can't do this anymore, right? You've got to quit. You've got to stop. You got to stop. The other truth of my disease is I can't stay sober for any significant period of time without a solution. I can't do it of my own. And I know that because what happens when I try to stay sober without a solution is my kids become more annoying and more irritating, and they don't listen as much. And the drivers on the road become bigger a-holes, and my boss becomes a bigger a-hole, and my coworkers become more untenable, right?
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend nags more, right? Until I convince myself the only way out of this thing is a drink.
Right, right.
And that's that restless irritability, discontented, but it doesn't present itself like that to me. At least it didn't. Today it does because I can recognize it. But yesterday it presented itself as the world is out to get me. The world is too much, and I need to escape. I need to.
Yeah.
I got to escape.
Right.
Because I can't stand one more second of it. But the reality is I couldn't stand one more second of being in my own skin.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. No, I totally get that. I mean, the whole not wanting to be who I am, but not having a solution other than the one that's killing me.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so these alternate truths of my disease would manifest themselves in my life over and over again. I can't drink successfully. I can't manage my drinking. I can't manage my use.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it became unmanageable, I'd stop, and then life sober would become unmanageable.
Sure. Yeah.
And isn't that the crux of what we deal with as addicts and alcoholics? Is this dual unmanageability of being sober becomes unmanageable and using or drinking becomes unmanageable. What am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this thing? I'm in a catch-22. This thing that in the beginning provided me all of the freedom and the release that I could have ever wanted. And in the beginning, it was fun. In the beginning, it was great. In the beginning, it was joy. It was peace. It was contentment. I had arrived. I mean, for many years, I enjoyed my drinking. Yeah, there was consequences, but by and large, it was a freeing, enjoyable experience, right? But at the end, this thing that promised so much freedom and so much joy stripped all of that from me,
Yeah.
right? Completely stripped me of freedom. I was in bondage.
Yeah.
Right?
Bondage of self.
That's right. That's right. I was in utter, complete bondage. I couldn't, at the end, feel like I had the ability to be able to go on with life either way.
Right. And
Either way.
is that moment, is that place of, you're at the crossroads, right?
Mhm.
You can't drink and you can't not drink.
Right.
Is that when you finally surrendered? Did you have like a moment of clarity, or what was it that finally brought you to the solution and you decided to seek help?
Yeah. So I'm on my third marriage. Okay. And she doesn't know I have a problem with drugs or alcohol. I never told her about any previous treatments or anything like that. Right?
Wow. Third marriage. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's again another thing in my active addiction and alcoholism. Anything that would fix me and make me feel better and make me feel whole, whether it was a relationship, whether it was alcohol, whether it was sex, whether it was porn or other things. Those things were present in my life. Especially if alcohol couldn't be dominant, then something else would take its place for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Whether a cross addiction, but third marriage, right?
Okay.
And she asked me one day, she says, "Do you drink every day?" And we'd been together for a little over a year. And I said, "Yeah, but baby, 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 it's only a few." And she, of course, now she's counting because I said a few.
Now
right?
she's got you.
Now we're locked in. Now game on. And I see that look at her eye like, oh shit, she's going to start counting.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem, Arlena, with trying to outsmart somebody that's already smarter than you and not drunk it doesn't usually work out very well. Yes.
I see this coming. I see what's going to happen.
Yes.
Spoiler
so it took
alert.
about 3 days for her to say, you drink more than a few.
Yeah.
Right. And so a little back and forth, she says, "Can you quit?" I said, "Of course I could quit." That's a stupid question. Of course I can. I can quit anytime I want. She's like, "Okay, how about now?" I should have seen that coming.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I should have seen that. So I quit for 30 days on Marlboros and resentments. That's what I had.
Yuck. Okay.
It was Marlboros and resentments. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. So we get to 30 days, and I've already, for all of the 30 days, I'm thinking, how am I going to convince her it's okay for me to drink again? Right. I first have to convince myself that's how this thing works, right? I have to convince myself that it's okay to drink again, right? Oh, I'm patting myself on the back. I quit for 30 days. Clearly, Charlie, you are not an alcoholic because you quit for 30 days, right? So now I can go about the business of convincing my wife of this same message. I do. I say, so we've got an event coming up. It's my son's birthday and it's Thanksgiving, same day. I'm going to have my parents over. And I convince her that it's a good idea to buy some alcohol. But don't worry, baby, I'll go to the liquor store. I'm all over it. And I'm like a kid at a candy store. I'm like, 6-pack after 6-pack after 6-pack and, 4 bottles of wine. There's 4 people that are going to be drinking for, the sum total of 3 hours. And I have enough alcohol, Arlena, to,
drunk in a small army.
That's correct. That's accurate.
Okay.
But somehow I've convinced myself that I'm only going to have one. And I knew how important it was to only have one. I rarely put myself in that box because I knew I couldn't adhere to it. I rarely put myself in that kind of a box because I knew I couldn't trust myself. But I knew this one time, everything was on the line. I had to.
Yeah.
because if I didn't, I would lose my marriage, I would lose my house, I would lose it all.
Yeah.
And we know how that goes, right? I have one and I can't stop.
Yeah.
I'm drinking drinking glasses of wine. I get hammered, and I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I almost cut my hand off with the turkey carver.
Oh my God.
My parents leave, and my wife at the time looks at me and says, and she's honestly asking, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, she doesn't know.
She doesn't know. Because I haven't told her that I'm an alcoholic. I haven't even accepted it myself. My son looks at her, he looks at me, he looks at her again and says, what do you mean? It's just Dad. He's just drunk again.
Oh, how old was your son?
My son at that time, let's work backwards. He's 17 today. He was 12.
Oh my goodness. About the age you were when you lost your mom.
Yes.
And he was
And I realized in that moment that this whole Jekyll and Hyde affair that I had been trying to maintain for so many years to convince myself and everybody else that I'm not an alcoholic, that I don't have a problem. The gig had been up for a long time, and I was the last one to find out. And it killed me.
Oh man.
Because I felt at that moment that I had failed everybody in that room.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And it couldn't have felt lower. She said, you got to go to treatment. You just got to go. Right. And I wasn't going to treatment to get sober. I was going to treatment not to get divorced. Right?
But you did go. You did go to treatment.
That's right. I did go. And I go to this treatment counselor's office, and I hadn't been honest to anybody in my entire life about my addiction. And for some reason, I got all sorts of honest with that treatment counselor. I mean,
you did.
All sorts of honest. I don't know what came over me. I cannot tell you to this day what came over me that day to be that honest with her. And I surrendered to my disease that day. And I cried like a baby in that treatment counselor's office. And she asked me, she's like, what do you want to get out of this deal? And I said, I want to know why I am the way I am. Why? Mm-hmm. And she looks at me and she half laughs, and I said, well, she's kind of a bitch, She said,
we laugh at the most inappropriate things.
Totally. She's like, so let's say we figure it out. She's like, let's say we figure out you were destined to be, you've got big addict and alcoholic switches and they were bound to get tripped. Or maybe it's because your mom died when you were 11, or maybe it's a combination of the two. She's like, if you find out why you are the way you are, do you think you'll ever be able to drink successfully again? And I said, no. She says, if we figure out why the way you are, do you think you'll ever be able to use safely again? I said, no. She said, cool. Should we figure out how we get better instead of why you are the way you are?
Brilliant.
And exactly. Like yes. Fuck yes. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
Please. Because everything I've tried up until now has failed spectacularly. So let's try your way.
Wow. That's amazing. And have you been sober ever since?
I have. Yep.
How long has it been?
So my sobriety date is December 6, 2014.
Wow. So this is literally right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Wow.
100%.
But it sounds like you drank one more time.
I sure did. I drank maybe a couple more times before I got into the treatment counselor's office because I knew sort of the end was near. Yes, we're gonna, but it's funny. It was sad.
What was sad?
My drinking. Those last episodes were sad. They weren't fun.
Oh yeah.
Because she was like with her folks and not staying at the house.
Oh, she left.
Yeah, and I'm drinking alone. And they were sad. They were sad after that.
Days.
Right?
Yeah. Pitiful.
Yep. 100%.
Oh my goodness. So in 2014, so did you do the 30 days inpatient?
I went to Hazelden. I went to outpatient
Outpatient.
treatment with Hazelden. And, one of the things, so I go to treatment, I get back from the treatment counselor's office, and, the steps are in order for a reason. I hadn't even really properly worked step one, but I felt so guilty about all the things that I had done. I decided that it was a good idea, Arlena,
Uh-oh.
to tell my wife at the time all of the things I did that she didn't know about. All of
Confession
them.
is not always good for the soul.
No, we're not married anymore, Arlena. Okay.
You did mention you have a girlfriend, so I just kind of put two. I'm good like
we're
that.
Not married anymore. You tell her that you've been driving drunk with her kids and all these other things, and so that I've been, that I've had a problem since I was 16, and she came from a father that left her on her birthday at age 5, and he's a raging alcoholic.
And she married her father.
That's right. And her stepfather was a raging alcoholic and abused her.
Yikes.
And so we were not long for this world anyhow, right? She doesn't need to be married an alcoholic, and I didn't need to be married to Somebody who was going to be constantly petrified of me relapsing. Right. So, things work out the way they're supposed to, I think, in that way.
Always. Yeah. And I mean, I never know. I've been wrestling with the idea. Some people think, oh, God has a plan, and I'm not 100% sold on that. But what I am sold on is that no matter what the situation is, that God can transform any situation.
Absolutely. As long as I'm aligning myself to that, right? To be of maximum service, right? And so that was that moment, that transformative moment. And then I just started to get to work, and I went down to my first 12-step meeting, and it felt like coming home.
Oh, I love that. That was my experience too. It always makes me sad when other people don't find that, but you found a good group.
Yes. And it felt like coming home. And it felt like for the first time in my life, I'm accepted. And for the first time in my life, I've been running from this disease all my life.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a group of people who accept me for exactly who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no other feeling like it.
Yeah.
Then I started looking at the people that had what I wanted, right? There was people in those meetings that had what I didn't want. They were miserable. They were complaining all the time.
It is not, as they say, the hotbed of mental health.
It is not a bastion of emotional well-being. You are correct.
Right.
I'm
not sure what a bastion is, but I don't think it's there.
It's not. And so, but there was people there that had what I wanted.
Okay.
They had this certain aura about them.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they had this certain peace about them. And I started to do what they did. If they said they made their bed every morning, well, I made my bed every morning. If they said they got down on their knees and started praying to a God that they didn't understand, I did that too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I started listening to speakers, 12-step speakers all the time. And there was a lot of solution in that. And I got a sponsor, and I worked the steps to the best of my ability. Probably the most transformative experience was listening to Joe and Charlie.
The Joe and Charlie tapes. For people who don't know, those are available online. I highly recommend them. Yeah.
Somebody once said about the Joe and Charlie tape. So the Joe and Charlie really explain the big book in a way that had never been done before. Somebody once said it took Bill and Bob to write the big book and Joe and Charlie to explain it.
Yeah.
And they spoke to me in a way that transformed my recovery in one really important way. They kept saying, just do the work. Don't question it. Just don't question it. Turn your brain off, do the work, and then judge the result. And so that's what I did. I just put my head down, right? And I just did the work. And, I have this big resentment against God. How am I going to get through that? I decided I'm going to wipe that slate clean, completely clean. I'm going to wipe it clean. And I'm just going to start praying to a God that I have no concept of. And I always thought this idea that I'm going to create a concept of God. And, I always felt like that was sort of ridiculous. Like, you want me to manufacture a God, and then that God is going to save me from my alcoholism. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And it didn't make sense to me.
Right.
Because if I could dream it up, then it's not big enough.
Right. Yeah.
I need something bigger than me.
Right.
So I started praying to a God that I didn't understand, that I didn't have a concept of in the morning and at night. And something really profound happened. And I didn't realize it until months after. The world didn't change because I started praying to that God that I didn't understand. My job didn't change. My kids didn't change. But it was getting better by magnitudes of order better. My life was. The only thing that changed was me.
Right. Yeah.
And so this God that I have no concept of, that I don't understand, changed me. That was my moment. That was that recovery moment. That was that second boom moment. Like, I don't have to understand this thing in order for it to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't. I just have to work it. And by virtue of working it, I receive these benefits that are extraordinarily profound. And it became very clear to me, there's a line in the big book that says, hey, your job is to fit yourself our job is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to the God of our understanding and the people around us. And that line out of the big book hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I can apply that across every situation in my life. I can apply that here in this interview. I can apply that at work. I can apply that with my kids, with my girlfriend, with my dog. I can apply that principle across all aspects of my life. And if I'm trying to be of maximum service to you and to the God of my understanding, right, I'm doing his will for me. And that's a beautiful thing. And there's purpose in that.
Yeah. Purpose. That is, there it is.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately, I think, what gives us helps us to build our self-esteem and helps us to feel like, that we have value and that we're doing good things with our time.
That's right. And if I'm and I can feel like I'm doing that in my work, even though I'm not saving babies, right? I can feel like I'm doing that, across my life, and I don't have to do this sort of like spectacularly profound, service work, right?
Yeah.
I can do it every day. I can do it with my kids.
Don't you find that it is the small things that turn out to be the big things, though?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we want to do this. We want to fill stadiums or something, but it's the subtle, small things that make all the difference in someone else's life, it seems like.
And that's the way God wants. That's the way that my higher power speaks to me. If I could be humble and authentic in how I am relating to you, that's being of service, right? So yeah, Absolutely. It is in the small things. It is in the, my sponsor early on said that you needed to, so when I turned my will over, right, I had to, write all the ways that my life would be different now that I turned my will over, right? And I thought that was really, really cool because it was this practical manifestation of, okay, what's changed then, Chuckles, since you've turned your will in your life over, right? Do you just get to do that and then like keep, not opening doors for people and keep, flicking people off in traffic, or what's going to change, right? So I wrote all these things down that would change. But one thing he said, he's like, you got to do one thing good for somebody a day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell somebody about it, it doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Isn't that great?
Yes, and his sponsor did that to him, and on and on and on, right?
And on and on. Yeah, that's made its way out to California too.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, right? Like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I don't get to advertise it. I just do it.
Right. Yeah, that's funny. Well, and I love that line out of the big book that says nothing ensures sobriety like intense work with another alcoholic, right?
Absolutely.
So not just alcoholics, just the people that are in our lives, being of service. That's
Absolutely.
huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if I align myself in that way, then the rest of it really takes care of itself.
Absolutely. It really does. No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I want to switch gears a little bit because you and I were talking just before we started recording about, what is life like now? I know you're doing the Way Out podcast. You've been doing that for a while. And you participate in as an admin on Sober and Serious. It's a Facebook group. Is that right?
It is indeed.
Very cool. And so here's the thing. I've been, because I'm in the online recovery community, I look at other groups, and I've noticed this phenomenon where somebody will share something like there's some hot buttons like are you sober if you're on Suboxone?
Right.
Or now that weed is legal in some places, are you sober if you're smoking weed? Mm-hmm. There's all these different topics that people bring up in these rooms, in the online rooms. And so this is what typically happens. Somebody brings up something controversial, and then somebody will be like, no, you're not sober if you're on Suboxone. Or the latest one that really kind of got under my skin is this lady was like, can you collect disability if you're an addict? And it set off this, firestorm of comments. And when this happens, what I see is you will get the people who will say, no, that's not right.
Right.
But maybe not so tactfully as you've seen, I'm sure. Uh-huh. And then the hand slappers show up. It's like, you're being judgmental. All you judgmental people need to step off. And then they praise the person for being honest, which is actually pretty good, right? You need people Absolutely. To be honest. And yes. It's like, we need to air all this stuff out. But it makes me feel like, where is the line between like holding somebody accountable for their bad behavior? Or, right. It's like, what, people, let's raise the bar a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, we're supposed to be making progress, not being perfect, but we want to make progress. So there are people who are willing to say, no, that's actually not something you should be doing. But then there's the hand slapping that goes on. And it's always kind of like, as an admin, do you have to step in and play referee sometimes? Or do you have your own personal feelings about that whole dynamic between, being support, like we were calling it judgment versus co-signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from my perspective, anytime I'm faced with a situation where, first of all, sometimes people are saying those controversial things because they want to troll. Let's just call that out.
Yeah.
Let's call a spade, right? Some people are, want to throw out the Suboxone or the, can I smoke weed and still be sober topics because, they're bored or lonely or both, and they want to get a lot of action on their post, right? So, that's it. But some people are asking it genuinely and really want to know and really want to understand, is this something that is acceptable, or what's your experience around this? Right.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, I always have to check my motives. Right. One of the things the program teaches me is that anytime I am saying something or doing something, whatever it is, it's important to do a motive check, especially if I'm unsure.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Is my motive that I want to feel superior to you? Is my motive that I want to look like I am the authority on alcoholism, or I am Mr. AA? Is that my motive, or am I trying to be helpful? On the flip side, so for those that, come right out and, say, no, that's not, but then on the flip side, if I'm the one that is a hand slapper, or if I'm trying to defend this person, is my motive that I want another friend, or that I want to appear sort of holier than thou, and I want an opportunity to tell you how wrong you are for judging them, and really I'm judging you in the process, right? And so I have to check my motives on that. And so what I really try to do in those situations is say, hey, here's my experience around this. This is what I've learned of my own experience and the experience of those people that I have come to know, right? And so I really try to bring that spirit to it. And then I always qualify it like, hey, this is my own experience. Take it or leave it, right? I'm not going to tell you should, would, could, that's not my business, but I can share my experience. The other thing I can offer, right, is love, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, look, I get it, right? We're all trying to get to the same place here, I think, right?
Yeah.
So can we try to find a way that we can help this person get to where they want to be?
Yeah.
And if you come from a place of love, in a place of truly wanting to help that person and not wanting to seize an opportunity to either judge them or judge the judgers, right? I think we're in the right place.
Yeah. It's just so, like some of these groups are really big, and I can tell, like I see like everything that you mentioned, like the people who are just wanting attention, some people who are really seeking, they really want to know. But the amount of responses I see around, like what is sobriety, and how do they, well then cigarettes and caffeine are those, it's just interesting. It's like there's so much education that's required, that I think that we still need to get out there. It's sometimes, like for me personally, I can't engage. I just can't. I mean, every once in a while I'll do what you said and be like, well, my experience with this is no. Right. No, I wouldn't. I was a pot smoker. I wanted someone to co-sign my, pot smoking, but
yeah.
But
I do that too. I don't engage most often. Often those really controversial topics. I stay out of that. Right.
I stay out of it. Yeah. I stay out of it, but every once in a while I'll ask a question, like, well, what about honesty? What about, making progress? What, things like that, that are,
that's right.
So, but it's
what
just
about what about doing some work and applying some program to this? Right.
Yeah. Have you worked the steps?
That's right. Have you applied? What step are you working? What step are you applying to this?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you tried? Have you tried? Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing live step work calls. I put the call out to my audience and I was like, hey, if you want to work steps and do it anonymously so that others can benefit from witnessing your transformation.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I just started doing that. I think that's going to be, so far only women have responded, which I guess isn't all that surprising.
Women have a little bit, I think, an advantage in the vulnerability category sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sort of I'm old school, right? I'm of that, the men work with the men and the women.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's new. I think that's new school too, by the way.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, there's, look, that's that motive. Yeah. That's that motive thing again. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. They call it, trauma bonding. That's a real thing.
It sure is.
And people get together in the rooms because finally we're speaking the same language. We're on the same path. God is present. Well, what could go wrong?
That's right. That's right. Well, besides everything.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my
Hey,
God.
look, I tell my sponsees, right? You could have all the sex you want in the first year, and after the first year, you could have it with other people.
Sometimes you have to take matters in your own
That's
hands.
100%.
I understand. That's so funny. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. And we're coming up on our time here. And usually I like to wrap up, since the podcast is called ODAT, meaning one day at a time.
That's right.
Do you have a daily routine or a weekly routine that you follow to maintain your sobriety?
I do. And what a great question, Arlena, because it's about action, right?
Yes.
In the end, it's about the things I do that allow me to live in long-term recovery.
Okay.
And so, yes, I absolutely
Action.
have a daily routine that consists of actions that provide my my current freedom, which is when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I hit my knees.
You do pray. Okay. You pray.
I do. Yeah.
Hit your knees and pray.
And I still pray to a God that I don't understand, and I've been doing this for now 4.5 years.
Right.
And I ask, I do the third step prayer.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for since the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got it. My motive behind that is to really try to focus on the meaning of each word instead of it being root.
Yeah.
Instead of it being just a series of sounds that comes out of my mouth so I can continue on with my day, right? So I hit my knees and I pray a third step prayer. And then after my shower, I do 2 daily meditations, 2 readings. Okay.
Which ones? Which ones?
So I do daily reflections.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do just for today.
I love daily reflections.
Oh, love it. Yep. And they're both good. And then at night, I also hit my knees.
Okay.
And thank him. And that's a very simple prayer. Thank you, God, for this day. That's it.
Thank you.
And then I do a nightly reading out of it is by Amy Dean, Nightlight.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yep. It's a really great nightly reading. It's meant to be read at night.
Oh,
and
okay.
it sort of gets me sort of spiritually connected again before I go to sleep at night. And so my day starts with prayer. I make my bed every morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important part of my routine. Some other things that are really important to me, I make sure that I get daily activity, daily exercise. Okay?
Oh, okay. Physical activity. Okay.
Yeah, self-care is really important to me in my recovery.
Okay, so self-care includes
I walk at least an hour a day.
Walking. Okay.
Yep. I did at least an hour walk a day, at least, sometimes 2, with my recovery dog, Louie.
Oh, Louie.
Yes, Louie, the recovery dog.
Sweet.
And now my girlfriend, because, I heard somebody once say that they've got problems in areas of their life they didn't even have areas before.
All right.
Yeah. That's what's happening.
It's a new area.
That's right. A whole new area.
Yeah.
That I didn't even have before, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's an amazing experience. So I must have that self-care routine. So daily activity is a must. Daily and nightly prayer is a must. I make my bed. I go to at least 1 meeting, but more often 2 a week.
A week. Okay. 1 to 2 meetings a week.
That's right.
And you mentioned having sponsees. How many people are you
sponsoring? I'm sponsee-less today.
Okay.
Right? But my sponsor, God bless him, every time, I'm in a meeting and they ask who's willing to be a sponsor. My hand goes up whether I'm willing or not, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've been told to do.
Yeah.
So I've had the gift of bringing a number of folks through the steps, and
nice.
It's been a wonderful experience, and I no doubt will have that experience in the future because I've been told to keep raising my hand.
Absolutely.
And then once a month, I volunteer at a local hospital and give a meeting for the folks in the mental health and substance abuse floor.
Okay, once a month at the hospital.
Yeah, and that's service work that I do. And you know what? It's as rewarding or more rewarding than my podcast.
Wow.
It's Orlena, it's amazing because of two primary reasons. Almost invariably, you wrap up that I wrap up. It's a big book meeting. We read out of the big book and then we share. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes to me and says thank you, and the gratitude that is coming out of them is unlike you see anywhere else. Truly, truly grateful that you're there.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is often there's folks in there that have had long-term sobriety. 5 years, 10 years, and they've relapsed.
Brutal.
And every single one of them tells me how they relapse. So I know exactly how to relapse. Okay. I stop going to meetings. I stop praying. I stop being of service. If I stop those things, it relapses in the picture for me too. And I need that reminder.
Yeah.
That I am not invincible. I am, it's funny, at 4.5 years sober, I just did my volunteering last night. And I had like 3 hours unaccounted for, right? Between, because I had to get a tuberculosis test read. You got to do that when
they do the scratch test on your arm and read it 48 hours later. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. And then it was like 2 and change hours until I had to volunteer. And my brain's like,
hey,
you could go to a bar.
Still.
What the hell?
Now, who said that?
Right. Like
you have to look over your shoulder?
100%. 100%.
Where did that come from?
Yep. It's hot out. You could go out on a patio and you could get a little drunk, and by the time you got home, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
You'd be fine. What in the actual what?
What the what?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's still in me,
Oh, yeah.
That, it comes right out of left field sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's like a little piece of our personality that's inside there that's never going to go away, but definitely needs some attention.
The good news is I got to pray on it. I didn't relapse. I volunteered. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sober to be able to apply program to why I was thinking that way, right? And so I've got a little program to do here to kind of work through a little bit of that. But you know what?
Something's
going on. Something's cooking.
Having a feeling.
100%. There's some sort of like emotion. It's probably tied to some stuff that's going on with my stepmom. She's got cancer. She's sick. Right.
Oh, yeah. Sherry.
Sherry. Yeah. So my dad's actually going through it again. My stepmom.
You're all going through it again.
We are.
Yep. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you. And
that sucks.
But I get to be sober to recognize that.
Sure.
And connect those dots, right? That there's this really awful experience that's remanifesting itself. It's bringing up stuff from my childhood that I don't like, right? But I get to understand that, and I get to apply program to it, right? And as long as I'm sober, I'm going to come out a little healthier, a little stronger,
Yeah, maybe you'll get to resolve some of the unresolved feelings that you had when you were younger now that it's coming up.
I did that in therapy. I did a lot of that in therapy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You did do therapy. I was going to ask you about that. So not when you were ready for it when you were young, but you did therapy later.
When I got sober.
When you got sober.
Hazelden offered therapy, and I really was able to, we did EMDR.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
EMDR, I hear, I want to do it because I keep hearing that EMDR is a great way to resolve past trauma.
Bingo. And it was. And, there was this, Arlena, I cannot tell you how highly I recommend it. I was able to get, move through those really, really traumatic,
Okay.
debilitating experiences. And I was able to rewrite them and passed away much of the power that they had over me. And it was fundamental. I always say that, the 12 steps along with the
Many
right
other things.
therapy.
Yeah. Therapy. Yeah.
Yep.
Huge. Yeah. I did therapy too. I did process therapy, which the basic concept of process therapy is that you work through your feelings to resolution.
Okay.
Like you actually process the feeling till it resolves.
Yes.
And that was magical for me. But
that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and it's I say it all the time, but there's this lie that time heals all wounds, but it doesn't. The pain waits.
That's right.
The pain waits
right.
until we're either ready to deal with it or forced to deal with it.
That's right. You are 100% correct. My experience mirrors that, Arlena. That time did not heal. It did not heal.
I want to ask you about the EMDR. I think it stands for eye movement desensitization. I don't know what the R is.
I don't know either.
Am I even close? I don't even know if I'm close.
I don't even know what it stands for. I just did it. That's the moment.
Is the process that, so you're with a counselor, do they give you the little things that you hold in your hands?
That's right.
That vibrates?
Yes.
And they have you relive the experience. Is that right? And then bring in, you bring in like somebody that you see as a strong
and
guy.
To me, that was me. So that was, so what they said was, and the way I treated it was, she recognized that I, had a very profound connection to my kids. Mm-hmm. Were about the same age as I was at that time, right? And so they said, talk to yourself at that time like you would talk to your child.
Got it. Yeah. Because what wouldn't you do for your child?
That's right. And what would you tell them? You would tell them that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell them that it's okay to feel the way you're feeling.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell them that it's going to hurt like hell, but it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And you will make it through this. And so I was able to tell myself these things that nobody was telling me at the time. And I desperately just wanted to know that it was going to be okay. And I desperately just wanted to know that it wasn't going to hurt like this forever.
Not forever. Yeah.
That's right. And I desperately wanted to know that on the other side of the pain was growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was able to tell myself that in that moment.
Wow.
And rewrite it. And so now when that experience comes up and I share about it, I'm not reduced to a puddle of tears anymore.
Right. It takes the emotion out of it.
It did. It took so much of the power away.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. I'm so glad we talked about EMDR. I've been thinking a lot about, do you know who Tommy Rosen is from Recovery 2.0?
Yes.
Oh yeah. He seems like such a sweet soul. And he had a guy on, I think maybe he's going to come on, but he's going to talk about resolving trauma. So I'm super excited to hear about
that. You know what? I always, it's frequent on the Way Out podcast that we talk about the importance of addressing your mental health.
Oh, sure.
Along with your journey in recovery.
Yeah.
Right?
Key.
Absolutely.
Oh, Charlie, thank you so much for your time. You are a sweet soul. I really appreciate your story. You have a way of speaking and telling stories, which is probably why your podcast is doing so well. So congratulations on all your success. And thank you so much for having all the right motives and helping lots and lots of people and for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Arlena, thanks for doing what you do. It matters, and you're reaching people in a way that only you can. And that's what I love about what you're doing, right? There's people that only you can reach, that only you can touch. And there's hearts that only you can touch, and you're touching them through your podcast. So keep up the good work, because I know it's work. And let's let us not be strangers.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, thank you so. Yeah, and I'm going to be coming onto your podcast too, and you'll get to hear my whole sob story.
Thanks, Skippy. All right, Arlena.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.